In 2005, a quiet American town was shaken by a chilling event. A young woman disappeared without a trace from her home, leaving behind her belongings, phone, and car. The subsequent investigation of this case felt like a typical detective series, with one key difference: everything was happening in real life. The small town was engulfed in an atmosphere of fear and distrust, as anyone in the community could have been involved in the girl's disappearance. It wasn't until 12 years later that the world learned the terrifying truth. Tara Grinstead was born in 1974 in the city of Hawkinsville, USA. During her school years, she actively participated in beauty contests, frequently taking top prizes. She set a goal for herself to receive a quality education, so she saved the money she earned from contests to pay for her studies. After graduating from college, Tara earned a master's degree in educational sciences and got the job she had always dreamed of: a history teacher at a middle school in the small town of Ocilla, Georgia. This small town was the epitome of rural America, with a population of less than 4,000 people, most of whom knew each other well. Life there flowed quietly and steadily, and no one could imagine that something so serious could happen in their town. Tara worked at the local school for several years, during which she built wonderful relationships with both her colleagues and students. She was a kind and sociable person, always ready to offer support and lend a hand. In October 2005, she was helping her students prepare for a local beauty contest. Given that their teacher had frequently won prizes at such events, the girls were thrilled by her support. On Saturday, October 22nd, Tara helped her students with the final preparations for the contest. After that, she went to a picnic with her school friends and returned home around 11 o'clock in the evening, parking her car under the awning. After that, Tara stopped answering her phone. Her mother, who lived in another city, was the most worried. Her daughter always answered the phone or called back, but this time there was no reply. On Monday, October 24th, her concern reached its peak. Tara didn't show up for work, which was extremely unusual for her. She took her job very seriously and would have definitely informed her supervisor if she needed time off. Worried friends of Tara called Police Chief Billy Hancock and asked him to check if everything was all right. At 10 a.m. that same day, he went to her house. The officer assumed that Tara's phone had simply died, or that she had fallen ill or overslept. Upon arriving at her house, he found her car in its usual spot, and the doors were unlocked, which was not surprising in such a small town. However, he noticed something odd. A $100 bill was lying on the dashboard. It seemed strange that such a responsible person like Tara would leave money in plain sight. Billy knocked on the door, but no one answered. He decided to check the house. At first glance, everything seemed normal. No signs of a struggle or a break-in. However, in the bedroom, there was an unusual mess that was not characteristic of Tara. Her belongings were scattered on the floor, including the clothes she had last been seen wearing. Her mobile phone was lying on the bedside table, still charging. Everything appeared as if Tara had stepped out for a moment, but she was nowhere to be found. Outside the house, the police discovered the first clue that suggested something criminal had happened: a latex glove, likely used by someone to avoid leaving fingerprints. The detectives did not consider the possibility that the glove could have belonged to Tara, as such gloves were rarely used for everyday tasks. With this clue in hand, the case was handed over to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The primary theory was that Tara had been abducted. Evidence was scarce. In addition to the glove, the detectives found only two suspicious details: Tara's broken necklace on the bedroom floor and her alarm clock, which was not in its usual place. However, these clues did little to help detectives solve the mystery of her disappearance. For the small town, that Monday turned into a nightmare. Tara's house was cordoned off, and the school held an emergency meeting. Colleagues and students did everything they could to help with the search by forming a group of volunteers. They printed dozens of flyers with Tara's photo and information about her disappearance. Within hours, these flyers were spread throughout the town. Volunteers continued searching until late at night. Agents from the Bureau of Investigation interviewed Tara's neighbors and combed through the area where she lived. Tracking dogs were brought in, hoping to pick up the scent of the missing woman. The investigators held on to the hope that Tara had simply gone for a walk and that the dogs would easily find her. Meanwhile, the latex glove was sent to experts for a thorough analysis. They managed to extract a DNA sample from it, but no matches were found in the FBI database. All they knew was that the sample belonged to a man. Unfortunately, none of this yielded results. Tara had seemingly vanished without a trace from her own home. The detectives then decided to dig deeper into her personal life. In cases of missing women, it's often someone from their close circle who is responsible. After thoroughly investigating the men Tara had been involved with, the detectives were unable to single out any suspects. The person she had dated the longest was Marcus Harper, a former police officer and military veteran. They had broken up about a year before her disappearance, at Tara's initiative. The reason for the breakup was that Tara wanted to start a family, while Marcus was not ready for that. Despite the breakup, they remained on friendly terms, sometimes calling and texting each other. Later, the detectives uncovered an interesting detail. Marcus had visited Ocilla 3 weeks before Tara's disappearance, but had not informed her of his visit. When Tara found out from mutual friends that Marcus had been in town, she was very upset. She repeatedly called him, trying to understand why he hadn't told her. Her emotional state soon escalated into a full-blown meltdown, worrying her family. They even began to fear that she might do something reckless. However, she eventually calmed down, and the police stopped considering Marcus a suspect. Soon, the investigation took an unexpected turn. The police learned that Tara had been threatened by one of her former students. On March 13, 2005, 7 months before her disappearance, this student showed up at her house and acted extremely aggressively. When Tara refused to let him in, he began banging on the door, forcing neighbors to call the police. It was revealed that the young man had been in love with his teacher since high school. According to Tara's acquaintances, he was emotionally unstable and exhibited strange, even frightening behavior. For a while, Tara tried to help him with his issues, but his mental state only worsened. After the incident where he tried to break into her home, she filed a police report, as she feared for her safety. After Tara's disappearance, the police tracked down this young man. He was working in a nearby town, about 150 kilometers from Ocilla. The man provided detectives with an alibi for the night his former teacher went missing, and there was no evidence to link him to her disappearance. Inside Tara's home, police also found a business card belonging to a police officer with whom she had been romantically involved for a while. However, by the time Tara disappeared, this man had already moved to another city. He also provided an alibi for the night Tara went missing. At this point, the list of potential suspects had nearly dried up. With no solid leads, the police decided to organize a formal search for Tara several weeks after her disappearance. This delay seemed strange, as it had been clear from the start that Tara hadn't left her home voluntarily. Hundreds of volunteers combed the area around Ocilla, searching the forests, ditches, and rivers, but no trace of Tara was found. During the search, a report came in about a house and car burning down near Tara's home. The local residents were almost unanimous in their belief that this incident was somehow related to the woman's disappearance. Perhaps the perpetrator was trying to cover their tracks. However, it was also possible that the community, already shocked and scared, saw suspicion in every event. Regardless, the search yielded no results, and the police faced a grim reality. They had no more leads to follow. For the next few years, the investigation barely progressed. Then, in 2009, an event occurred that once again brought attention to Tara Grinstead's disappearance. In 2009, an event occurred that once again brought attention to Tara Grinstead's disappearance. A user created a YouTube channel and uploaded a deeply unsettling video. In the video, a man sat with his face obscured and his voice altered. He claimed to be responsible for the disappearance of 16 girls, listing their names. Among them was Tara Grinstead. The man added that he had hidden the bodies well and would give clues about their burial sites in future videos. The police quickly investigated the video and discovered that all 16 names belonged to real missing women. The FBI was able to track down the person behind the video fairly quickly. The author turned out to be 27-year-old Andrew Hale. Upon his arrest, he admitted that the video was just a sick joke. The police found no connection between Andrew and any of the missing women, but he was still unable to avoid punishment. For providing false testimony and falsifying evidence, he was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor and 13 years of probation. The fleeting hopes of solving this cold case were extinguished, and once again, the police were left without a single lead. In December 2010, Tara Grinstead was officially declared deceased, as there was simply no more evidence or clues for the police to work with. The years passed, and while the people of Ocilla still remembered Tara's mysterious disappearance, it was spoken about less and less. Conversations about her were confined to private settings, and the topic was rarely raised in everyday life. The town had changed forever. An air of fear and distrust had settled over the residents for years to come. However, in 2016, something happened that once again got people talking about Tara openly. Journalist Payne Lindsay from Atlanta created a podcast dedicated to mysterious cases, and for his first episode he chose the case of Tara Grinstead. Together with private investigator Morris Godwin, they began investigating the case from scratch, as they had no access to police documents. Their only source of information was the town's residents. At first, they were only able to speak with Tara's friends and relatives. Most other people avoided discussing her disappearance, but soon Lindsay's enthusiasm reignited interest in the case, and before long, Ocilla's residents began talking about it again. Lindsay and Godwin explored every possible lead, considering 3 potential suspects: Tara's former boyfriends and the student who had tried to break into her home. Along the way, they spoke with anyone who might have had even the smallest piece of useful information. They were so engrossed in the case that on multiple occasions, it seemed like they were just one step away from solving it. One day, Lindsay received a call from an anonymous person who suggested that the police should search for remains on Tara's property. The police followed this tip, and at one point, they did indeed find bones. However, experts quickly determined that the bones belonged to an animal. Despite the renewed interest and excitement surrounding the case, no significant breakthroughs occurred. Although Lindsay and Godwin didn't manage to solve the case directly through their podcast, it was this amateur investigation that became the catalyst for the long-awaited resolution. The resolution came unexpectedly. In early 2017, a woman named Brooke Sheridan came forward to the police with a story that shocked the detectives, who had long since lost hope that the truth would ever come out. Brooke told the investigators that her ex-boyfriend, Bo Dukes, had once confessed to her that he had helped his friend dispose of Tara Grinstead's body. After learning this, Brooke had begged Bo multiple times to turn himself in, but he had remained silent. Hearing Brooke's story, the police decided not to rush into anything. Who knew? Perhaps she was just seeking attention or fame, especially now that the successful podcast had brought Tara's case back into the public eye. The detectives wanted to be certain before taking any action, so they asked Brooke to wear a wire and confront Bo Dukes to get a confession from him. It worked. Bo Dukes admitted his involvement, and the police finally had enough evidence to arrest him. Surprisingly, Bo immediately cooperated with the investigation and revealed everything. He later told detectives that he had grown tired of living with the burden of the secret. According to Bo's confession, late one night, his friend and former classmate Ryan Duke called him and asked for help. Ryan wanted to borrow Bo's truck and needed help with something, after which he added, "I broke into Tara Grinstead's house to steal some money, but something went wrong, and I killed her." As Ryan's story goes, after a night of partying with friends, he had been driving around when he decided to break into Tara's house to steal money. At the time, he was under the influence of drugs. Using a credit card to open the door, he entered the house and began searching for money. Tara caught him in the act, and a struggle ensued, which ended with Ryan killing her. When Bo Dukes arrived at Tara's house with the truck, the two of them loaded her body into it and drove into the woods, where they spent the next several days disposing of the remains. This horrifying story stunned the residents of Ocilla. Neither Ryan Duke nor Bo Dukes had ever been considered suspects because they had no obvious motive, and there had been no clues connecting them to Tara's disappearance. Despite his full confession, Bo Dukes refused to testify against himself in court. During the trial, he stood in front of Tara's relatives, wept, and begged for their forgiveness. Bo had served in the military for a long time and was a veteran with numerous honors, but that didn't change the outcome. The court sentenced him to 25 years in prison for his role in helping to conceal the crime. As for Ryan Duke, his trial has dragged on for years, even 4 years after his arrest. This is largely due to the work of his defense attorneys, who have used various legal loopholes to delay the inevitable. There is no doubt that Ryan will end up in prison, but when exactly the court will deliver its final verdict remains unclear. Now that the truth about this high-profile case has finally come to light, Tara's friends and family can at last feel some relief from the weight of uncertainty. Her mother confessed that all these years she had secretly held on to the hope that a miracle might happen, that her daughter would somehow return alive. But the reality was cruel, with no room for miracles. At least now, the whole world knows what really happened in that small town back in 2005.